Hello everybody, it's Lazel here with another Magic the Gathering EDH deck tech. Today I'm featuring Thalia and the Gitrog monster. This is an absent commander for 4 mana, which is a 4/4 human frog horror. She has First Strike, Death Touch, and you may play an additional land on each of your turns. Creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Whenever Thalia and the Gitrog monster attacks, sacrifice a creature or land, then draw a card. We ain't close to questing beasts yet, but there's a lot of text on this card. So we want to abuse a lot of these abilities on Thalia and the Gitrog monster. We want to play taxes, we want to play graveyard shenanigans, and we want to draw a bunch of cards on attack. We are going to win by flooding the boards with a lot of tokens and then overwhelming our opponent with an army of tokens. Creatures that will help us are, for example, Verdant Force, an 8 mana 7/7. At the beginning of each upkeep, create a 1/1 green supporting creature token. Or Tendershoot Dryad, a 5 mana 2/2 with Ascent. At the beginning of each upkeep, create a 1/1 green supporting creature token. Supportings you control get +2/+2 as long as you have the City's Blessing. Baladros Witherbloom, 7 mana 4/4 Flying Elder Dragon. At the beginning of each upkeep, create a 1/1 black and green pest creature token with when this creature dies, you gain 1 life, and its activated ability says pay 10 life, untap all lands you control, activate only once each turn. The classic Skewed Swarm, 3 mana 1/1 with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. If you control 6 or more lands, create a token that's a copy of Skewed Swarm instead. A token generator in another win con is also Felidar Retreat, 4 mana enchantment with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, choose one. Either create a 2/2 white cat beast creature token, or put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain vigilance until end of turn. And last but not least, Rampaging Bailiffs, 6 mana 6/6 trample, landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may create a 4/4 green beast creature token. In this deck we are going to ramp a little bit different. We are going to be sacrificing a lot of our lands to get even more lands out of that. For example, with Springbloom Druid, 3 mana 1/1. When Springbloom Druid enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a land. If you do, search a library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped. Antish Restoration is great, especially with Thalia on the field. 3 mana instant, sacrifice a land, search a library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, instead search a library for up to 3 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped. Roiling Regrowth, 3 mana instant, sacrifice a land, search a library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Harrow, 3 mana instant. There's an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a land. Search a library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped. As soon as we have filled our graveyard up either by ramping with all of these sacrifice spells or with Thalia's on attack trigger, we will play all of those lands again, for example with cards like Conduit of Worlds. 4 mana artifact, you may play lands from your graveyard, and its tap ability says choose target non-land permanent card in your graveyard. If you haven't cast a spell this turn, you may cast that card. If you do, you can't cast additional spells this turn, activate only as a sorcery. Or with Reanimate Excavator, 3 mana 2/3, you may play lands from your graveyard. We want to abuse this graveyard shenanigans a little bit more, for example with Titania, Protector of Argoth, 5 mana 5/3. When Titania, Protector of Argoth enters the battlefield, return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Whenever a land you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, create a 5/3 green elemental creature token. Or also with the original, the Gitrog monster, 5 mana 6/6 Death Touch Frog Horror. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice the Gitrog monster unless you sacrifice a land. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Whenever 1 or more land cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere, draw a card. Once we have assembled our token army, we need to pump them up. For example, with Elishnorn, Grand Cenobite, 7 mana 4/7 Praetor Vigilance. Other creatures you control get +2/+2. Creatures your opponents control get -2/-2. Overwhelming Stampede, 5 mana sorcery. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. Crater of Behemoth, of course. 8 mana 5/5 haste. When Crater of Behemoth enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. Or also Triumph of the Horde, 4 mana sorcery. Until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample and infect. We can either hardcast all of those creatures, but we are also in black, so we can simply just reanimate them. For example, we fill up our graveyard with cards like Entomb, 1 mana instant, search a library for a card, put that card into your graveyard, then shuffle. Or also Buried Alive, 3 mana sorcery. Search a library for up to 3 creature cards, put them into your graveyard, then shuffle. After that we will just reanimate them. Reanimate, 1 mana sorcery, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You lose life equal to its mana value. Persist, 2 mana sorcery, return target non-legendary creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter on it. Or also Animate Dead, 2 mana, I won't read all the text, but you know it. With Thalia and the Gitrog monster having a tax effect already, we want to play even more. We don't play many artifacts in this deck, so we will play Collector Oof, 2 mana, 2/2. Activated abilities of artifacts can't be activated. Furthermore, Drana and Lilvala are great in this deck. 4 mana, 3/4 Flying Vigilance. Activated abilities of creatures your opponents control can't be activated. Drana and Lilvala has all activated abilities of all creatures your opponents control. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to activate those abilities. Draenith Magistrate, we all know him, we all hate him. 2 mana, 1/3. Your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hand. Yasharn is also pretty cool because he also refills your lands. Yasharn, 4 mana, 4/4. When Yasharn enters the battlefield, search a library for a basic forest card and a basic plains card, reveal them, put them into your hands, then shuffle. Players can't pay life or sacrifice non-land permanents to cast spells or activate abilities. Boromir is not only a stacks piece, he is also an insurance for your creature survival. Boromir, 3 mana, 3/3 vigilance. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. Sacrifice Boromir. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn, the ring tempts you. And to ensure that nobody messes with you during your turn, grant Abolisher, 2 mana, 2/2. During your turn, your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures or enchantments. Let's protect our board even more. Flawless Maneuver, 3 mana instant. If you control a commander, you may cast a spell without paying its mana cost. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Clever Concealment, a really cool card in my opinion. 4 mana instant with Convoke on it. Any number of target non-land permanents you control face out. Heroic Intervention, of course. 2 mana instant. Permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Akroma's Will, not only protection but also a great finisher. 4 mana instant. Choose one. If you control a commander as you cast a spell, you may choose both. Creatures you control gain Flying, Vigilance and Double Strike until end of turn. And creatures you control gain Lifelink, Indestructible and Protection from all colors until end of turn. Let's say your board gets wiped and you have no protection in your hand, you can still cast Eerie Ultimatum, a 7 mana sorcery. Return any number of permanent cards with different names from your graveyard to the battlefield. For a little bit of hand hate you can also play Invasion of Gobokan, and once you've flipped it you not only have a nice pump up for your army, you also have a great insurance. Light Shield Array. At the beginning of your end step, put a 1-1 counter on each creature that attacked this turn. Sacrifice Light Shield Array, creatures you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. You want to win more? You get it. Let's start off with Greensleeve, Marrow Sorcerer, 5 mana. Protection from planeswalkers and from wizards. Greensleeve's Marrow Sorcerer's power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 3/3 Badger creature token. Not only does he get really big, he also creates an army of tokens for you. We play Ancient Green Warden, 6 mana 5/7 reach. You may play lands from your graveyard. If a land entering the battlefield causes the triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Not only is he another strong creature, he also lets us place lands from our graveyards and doubles those landfall triggers. Just as Elishnorn, Mother of Machines, 5 mana 4/7 vigilance. If a permanent entering the battlefield caused a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, this ability triggers an additional time. And she's also another stack piece. Permanents entering the battlefield don't cause abilities of permanents your opponents control to trigger. Last but not least, Finale of Devastation. 2 green and X. Search a library and or graveyard for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less and put it onto the battlefield. If you search a library this way, shuffle it. If X is 10 or more, creatures you control get +X and gain haste until end of turn. Alright guys, this is my approach of how I would play Thalia and the Gitrog monster as an EDH commander. If you want to add any cards to the list, let me know down in the comments below and let me know which card I shall feature next. See you in the next video. Goodbye.